For this episode of Coffee with Closers, I'm sitting down with Shaun Clark, the co-founder and CEO of HighLevel. HighLevel is a software as a solution for agency partners. Today, HighLevel serves over 11,000 agencies and over 280,000 small businesses. Stay tuned for my conversation with Shaun, where he shares some practical advice for how to build a company without taking any outside funding and how to also scale it with little to no advertising spend whatsoever.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Coffee with Closers, where business leaders share insights on how to build businesses from the ground up and best practices for innovating in their industry.
Hey, Shaun, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Hey, thanks for having me. I brought my coffee.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Well, every entrepreneur has a story of how they overcame obstacles to become an entrepreneur. I'm sure you have something very intriguing and interesting to share. Can you share with our audience a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, sure. So let's see, where does it start? Well, I started my first business in high school, and helping to set up servers for people, and that was a lot of fun, and it was cool to like have my own little business. And then ultimately, I was in college, and the company I was supposed to have my sweet internship with for the summer actually went. It was the .com crash, so they like laid off half their employees, and so I had to quickly figure out what the heck I was going to do. And turns out there was a guy who basically was kind of starting a new business in my town, and I just happened to I was going door to door looking for a job for the summer, and I just happened to run into him, and and at the time didn't really know what was going to happen, but really worked with him to start basically what was a very big answering service for. I remember I would go to college during the week and then drive down on the weekends to work with him like all Sunday, and then we would work at a distance during the week, and then eventually dropped out of college as that business took off, probably about my junior year, and then really worked to grow that business probably 7 days a week for about 12 years. So turned into a pretty big enterprise, all in the world of small business answering service.
So that was kind of your starting entrepreneurial journey. So you accomplished a lot. I was looking through your LinkedIn as well. So I believe that's Answer Connect. Is that Answer Connect?
Yeah, Answer Connect, and we had several other brands as well that basically did the same thing. So yeah, that was definitely on the Answer Connect side.
And then you went on to create another company, which is more on the collection of payment, invoice share.
Yeah, so it was my first true SaaS company, and I started that one all by myself, and I was the sole employee and founder and janitor of that company up until it was acquired. So basically it helped automate accounts receivable for about 1,000 small businesses, and I grew that off my kitchen table and until it was acquired. I think it was 4 or 5 years, and it was acquired by a payments company in Canada.
I see. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players in that space today with the Stripe and ChargeBee and you name it. Yeah. There's a whole lot of players. So that was a pretty early as well. This 2015.
Yeah, that was definitely and in fact that was a funny one because I was actually trying to remind people. It was supposed to be an appointment reminder software, and at the time there was a lot of people doing it, and I remember going to this like entrepreneur event, and there's a guy there, and he's like super, like he was a VC, and I was like I really wanted to talk to him, and I remember going up and telling my idea, and he was so blunt and so negative, but also so truthful. He said, that's a terrible idea. It's been done 100 times. You should think of something else. And I was really crushed, and I remember being sad, and I remember sitting down at dinner with my wife and her friends, and they were accountants, and they said, we have a lot of customers who send out invoices and they don't get paid on time, and then their businesses sometimes they'll actually fail because they don't get paid, not because they don't make money or people don't want to buy their stuff, but they just can't make the payroll or they can't pay the vendors, and by the time the money comes in. And they said, well, what if you tried reminding people to pay invoices? And I thought, oh, that's a terrible idea, but I've got nothing else to do, so I'll try that. Well, it turns out that actually was a fantastic idea. And tons and tons and tons of businesses to this day still have that issue.
Yeah, and I can attest to the whole fact, because I think when we got into business in 2006, the auto payment system was just kind of catching momentum. And if it wasn't for recurring billing and auto payment and credit card transactions, we did not have the human resources to be able to collect payments. Because I worked in a business in the past where it was all with check with a 60-day to get collected. I mean, you think about, right, your receivables grows very fast, and then
Yeah.
if you can't meet you can't pay your customers vendors, and you can't pay your employees, then you're not going to float too long.
Exactly.
So that definitely was a big problem.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
obviously, somehow you decided to kind of switch and start this new company, HighLevel, and it's essentially is servicing marketers, and it's completely different from helping people collect their money. So where did the idea for GoLevel come about?
So HighLevel came about because working with all these small businesses, I kept asking them like, well, what else do you need? What other problems do you have in life? And they all had the same problem, which is they all wanted more customers. And so naively, I sort of thought, well, I could write some software for that. And so my original co-founder and I wrote the sort of the first version of HighLevel. And we went out and lots of people loved it, and we started getting all these signups and everything. But then as the more features we wrote, the higher the churn got, and people started quitting. And many of these people early on, and I would call them and I would say, I don't understand. Not only did you say you loved it, you said you wanted this feature, we made it, and here you are, you're going to cancel? I don't get it. What did I do wrong, basically? And their feedback was, we love it, but now it's just too hard for us to actually implement in our business. And it was at that moment that we were like, oh crap, what are we going to do now? And so we were lucky because right about then a marketing agency called us and said, hey, we heard that you're working with one of our customers. We'd love to see the platform. So we showed it to them, and they totally got it. Implemented for all of their customers, started introducing us around to other agencies, and it really sort of allowed us to be educated to the fact that marketing agencies are like this secret sauce behind every small business that's super successful, because the big issue in every small business is time to learn new things, time to implement technology. So they need all these tools, they need all these outcomes and technologies and everything, but they don't have the time to implement them. And so once we figured that out, we were like, okay, great, we're off to the races, and we focused only on agencies and really haven't looked back since.
So that's an interesting transition, right? Because you would have thought a channel partner sales model might be something that a SaaS company would consider. And was that not even ever crossed your mind?
When you're thinking about selling to a really wide variety of SMBs, I definitely thought about those models, and I explored those models really explicitly. And, they always came down to, there's a device company, or there's an association, or there's a this or a that. And, looking back on it now, I realize the biggest thing is we were probably way too broad. But then the other thing you have to realize is that many of those sales channels are also, you're not the first person to think to go call the dental association or go call, the chiropractor association or whatever, right? So you call those people up and they'll take your call. They have lots to sell you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that channel sales is going to come through for you or be what you want it to be, or that it's not already directly occupied by a competitor. And if it is, good luck getting in. It's just not going to happen. So we had to find a different route.
Yeah, and obviously I do want to get into the agency side of the business, but I'm also curious on the software side of the business, because one of the things that I often hear SaaS founders say, and especially the CTOs say, customers are always going to ask a lot of feature, but over time the feature will get, software will get bloated with too many features. So, and I do know HighLevel is extremely feature rich, because it has everything: SMS, automation, landing pages, you name it, it has it. So how did you combat that, the whole argument of not going too crazy with all these features?
So that's a really good question. I think the big difference for us is because we designed to a very specific audience. We created not only did we create the features they needed, but the aspects of those features, the features in the features ultimately represent just what our audience wants. So while we might have the landing page builder, right, we're not going to have every possible option a landing page builder could have. And actually, I think that we've always lived by this sort of like 20-80 rules. We figure like 20% of the features do about 80% of the lift. And so we just sort of focus on that and stay in that lane. And we find we do pretty well. So we just kind of do these sort of very tactical implementations of a specific feature. And then we just move on, because we know for our audience, we just hit what needed to be hit. And we don't need to add the 100 other little things that ultimately, I think, honestly, lead to most of the bloat that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think to have accomplished, I was just looking at when you founded it, I think it was in 2018. I mean, within 4 years, you've gotten such a massive market share. And this is a market, there's a lot of big players, right? I mean, I think HubSpot is nearing $1 billion in revenue. Then you have all the other major players, and there's a bunch of other guys in the smaller SMB market with a lot of different automation. I think Keep just rebranded, right? I think they used to be called something else, and now they are Keep. Yeah, Infusionsoft. So they also have kind of gone through that refresh, and then you have the ClickFunnels and all these different players. So how are you able to get that market share much faster than some of these other guys who's been around?
I mean, so I've always said, what makes us different is not our feature set, it's our customer focus, right? So every other player you just described at some level will sell to anyone, right? They'll sell to a lawyer, they'll sell to a dentist, they'll sell to a marketing agency. They don't care who they sell to. They'll take anybody's money. And I think for us, the big difference is we only work with and only sell to marketing agencies. And so as a result, I think that focus and that commitment really changes the world for us. And it allows us to connect with that audience in a way that I think is way different than somebody like an Infusionsoft or a ClickFunnels or something, where they may work with a lot of agencies, but agencies aren't really their customers. Agencies are more like, hey, those are good people to know because we could get customers from those guys. But what tends to happen if you're an agency is you've gone through this sort of world where it's like, your customer buys a piece of software, they're working with you to do some kind of service or implementation, and then you get to that certain point and they say, oh, sorry, we're going to let you go, but we're going to keep the software. And if you're the agency, you're like, wait a second, you don't know how to use it, or I built you a website, but there's 10 other things you need to do, that kind of sort of feeling. And so for us, by only serving the agency, by allowing the agency to white label it, by going to market this way, we make ourselves a lot different than any other player in the market today.
Yeah, and one other question that I have is, obviously anybody who's in the SaaS business knows about the CAC, right? Customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value. But you somehow have managed to keep your price extremely low, and especially for SMB agencies, right? That's a very attractive way to get them hooked on a software like that. So how do you manage to actually offer your software with so many features at such low price?
Yeah, I think the biggest winner there is if you look at most SaaS companies in general. If you look at the budget, the reason why they all have to raise money is not necessarily engineering. I mean, engineering definitely is a part of it, but I'd say engineering is like 30 or 40% of the budget. But I think that 60 or 70% of the budget is sales and marketing. And really what that is that's buying ads, generating a lead, having a salesperson call, and going through all of that. It's extraordinarily costly. And so what we've done is, by working with agencies actually will talk to other agencies and recommend our product. And so our CAC is basically zero. And as a result, we take that savings, instead of putting it in our pocket, we literally just pass it along in the form of a lower price out to our customers. So our customers are able to benefit, and then we take the rest of it and we just put it all into engineering. And so every day we're focused on building a product for a customer base who then will go out and tell other people in their world all about us. And it's this nice sort of self-generating flywheel effect, if you will.
Understood. So let's shift our focus a little bit to the agency world, because that you have a lot of experience in that place, and I'm pretty sure you have thousands of agencies as customers. So obviously having served
11,000 and climbing.
Wow, that's awesome. So having served so many agencies in such a short time span, right? What are some of the things that agencies are doing wrong from your perspective?
So agencies are a really big catch-all term. So, if you're a really big agency, that's one thing. But I think, to speak to sort of what I think is more of the common person, if you're a one-person agency or up to maybe like a 5-person agency, the biggest thing that they do most of the time wrong is they don't focus enough on sales, and they often focus a lot on fulfillment. And in fact, most people, they'll get it right at the beginning because they have no customers. So they'll just spend all their time sort of marketing and selling and all this. But as soon as they get their first couple of customers or one customer, they'll take their time and like, okay, I'm going to go build that website. Oh, I'm going to go build that Facebook ads campaign. I'm going to go, I'm going to do that work, right? And then fundamentally what ends up happening is they get distracted from sales, they're in fulfillment, and their sales pipeline starts to die. That's the number one issue I see for most small agencies. And then the other thing is that a lot of agencies are starting to understand that generating a customer, in essence, and a lot of times they call it a lead. They say, getting a lead for my customer is very important. But that's actually where they sort of falter, because what this normally looks like is, all right, I'm going to go to the dentist. I'm going to say, I'm going to get you more leads. The dentist's going to be excited. Yeah, I want more leads. They go and run ads. They put them on a spreadsheet and they hand them over to the dentist and they say, there you go. I got you 100 leads. Woo! And the dentist says, like, well, wait, hold on. None of these people came in. I didn't drill any of these people's teeth. Like, I didn't get paid for this. Like, you're fired. And the agency is just like, oh my God, what just happened? I thought I did an amazing job. I got 2 cents per lead cost or something. And the reality is that's not what the business hires you for. You're being hired to get the customers. And the missing section in the middle is what we call lead nurturing, where the lead comes in and you're talking to that lead and getting them to actually do something like book an appointment, come in to see the dentist, right? Like that kind of thing. And HighLevel was built to really automate that whole flow, which is really why I think we've also been super popular, is because automating that outreach to the lead is critical. And because if you don't do it, I don't care if you're the small business or the marketing agency or the whoever, if I raise my hand today and say I'm interested in a free teeth whitening session, if you don't get me to show up in your office, sorry, I'm not a customer, right? And so that lead nurturing piece is so important. And the small business classically is horrific at it because, again, back to the whole root issue, they don't have time. They don't have time to learn a technology. They don't have time to even follow up with their leads. They have no time. So the agency has to come in and do that job, but they don't have time either, right? Because they're a busy agency. So having automation via HighLevel is really what has been a game changer for those agencies.
Yeah, which kind of leads me to my next question. I think you kind of alluded to it. So especially, I think you're probably well suited, especially in the digital marketing world, right? Where the agencies are doing digital ads, driving traffic and conversion, and those are the guys that are especially well suited to use a platform like HighLevel. So essentially, where is the industry headed from your perspective, kind of observing the trend in this digital space?
Well, I mean, I think what's exciting is that there's a big opportunity here because COVID has really kicked off this whole transition to digital. There was a lot of businesses who, pre-COVID were just saying, well, I know that digital is important and I'm kind of dabbling in it or whatever, but I've been doing this for 20 years. I think I'll just wait it out. I'll wait till I hand this off to somebody else or I sell or I retire or whatever. But now it's like, sorry, if you've got 10 years to run or 5 years to run, you better get digital or you're going to be dead. And so there's this massive shift. But if you look online, like go look at Google Trends and search digital marketing agency and go back to when Google first started clocking it, and you'll see that it's never been searched more. And it tells me that people understand they need agencies. So this is a big, big, big opportunity if you're thinking about going in and starting a marketing agency, or you currently have one and you're like wondering, should I really start promoting myself? This is a killer time to be there. Now, the big shift, though, that I think is that today every agency is traditionally in the services business. But in the future, I think that agencies are going to be in the technology business. And so what we're pioneering at HighLevel is the ability to resell the platform as a recurring software as a service offering as an agency. So all of a sudden, yesterday, if you weren't making a Google ad or creating a landing page or whatever, you're not getting paid. But now you can actually deliver a total software solution that allows you to create a recurring revenue stream, which is incredibly profitable. It's a 90% plus profit margin product, and it's a lower price point. So if you've been in the agency business for more than 5 minutes, telling someone, hey, it'll be $3,000 a month, getting a yes for that kind of sale, way harder than if it's $300 a month. And I can give you a free trial of that, right? Much, 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 much harder to make that sale. And so we're giving agencies the power to do that all the way down to the SMB level.
You kind of gave me a good segue because my next question was, how can they scale without really increasing the complexity of the business? Because I think whenever agencies thinking about increasing revenue, it's always like cross-sell, upsell opportunities of, if they're doing SEO, let's try to offering them paid search or social ads or marketing automation technology, right? And that really is it's making the business even more complicated, or just broaden the addressable market, which now I was serving, maybe dental, and I'm going to start serving the law firms, right? Which is a completely different animal. It's everything that you've tried to learn and understand for dental doesn't really apply for the law industry, right? So what's your recommendation for agencies that are actually trying to scale without really increasing the complexity of their business?
Yeah, so I would say, sell software. There's a reason why software companies get venture capital and service businesses don't. It's because the profit margins are higher, it scales better, and the LTV is just fundamentally longer and larger with a higher margin. So, it's just this, and it's also a much easier sale to make. I mean, saying to us, the pitch is, it's funny, the pitch actually doesn't change. You say to the small business owner, you're like, do you want a higher rank on Google? Do you want more 5-star reviews? Do you want, free leads coming in off of your website every single day? That's a yes, right? Then the punchline right now for the service is, it's $3,000 a month. It's like, well, wait, what if you could say $300 a month? Would your close rate go up? Well, of course it would. You get a lot more closes. Now, that doesn't mean you stop there. It doesn't mean you don't eventually sell them the $3,000 package, but there's two things. You get more people on the $300 to start, you create an immediate value, and now you've got this nice recurring revenue stream that grows every month. If you've been in the agency business for more than 5 minutes, $3,000, even when you do make the sale, it's not going to last for years and years and years. Businesses just can't sustain it. So what we find is that you sell the software, you sell the service, they go 3, 4 months, 5 months, whatever, they cancel the service, but now the software sticks. And so as you draw the line out over time, you're going to continue to create this really durable recurring revenue stream that you didn't have before. And it's all software based. You're not hiring people to create ads, hiring people to make landing pages. There's no labor costs there. You might run into some support costs as you grow, but it's way lower than trying to find somebody to create Google ads or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think which also brings me to a question about kind of the agency systems and processes. Have you also noticed any area where agencies are kind of failing when it comes to especially implementing a technology and training the end customer's internal team? Because most of the time, if all you have to do is do your service and report to them on leads, that's a lot easier to do than actually having to get them to adopt the platform, get them to actually use it, right? So have you seen anything in terms of what they're doing right or wrong in the agency world from that perspective?
I don't think it's as hard as you think. I think the most important thing is to try to, so in our system, you can choose what your customer sees versus what you see. And it's super simple. Just make sure the thing the customer sees is very small. And in fact, we have all of this set up. We have this already created in our system, so you can provision the user accounts and set up their accounts and get their payments going and all this stuff. But then when they log in, they only see one little aspect of the system, which is all you really need to train them on. So what we've focused on is, look, train them on one screen, like one new thing in the whole system. Plus, we have mobile apps on Android and iPhone. So then as you're running around town, it's like, okay, if they're a mobile business, they're field service, whatever, they can just do it off their phone, so they're very familiar with. So it's really about keeping it simple for your customer. And then on your side, doing all that extra stuff, right? Charge for the stuff that's complex, building the landing pages, the marketing automation, whatever, but have the customer involved every single day so they adopt it and it's usage based, right? We always say if we can get the customer in the app once a day, we win, because now they're stuck for life. Now it becomes a pattern, it becomes a habit, it becomes very useful. But on the agency side, it's just, look, let them see one screen and nothing else, and that's all they need to focus on. And if you do that one thing, you'll have a customer month after month after month for life.
Mm-hmm. And I have a question essentially around your transition, right? Because you've founded multiple companies, you've exited several of them, and most recently you founded this tech software that's actually more of a marketing and sales platform. So how has your approach on sales and marketing evolved over these years? Yeah,
absolutely. I would say in every one of my prior businesses, actually, it's kind of ironic. I would say normally the way I thought about it anyways is that I was going direct to the SMB. And in my last business, it did actually turn out, when I thought about it, that I was really going through a channel, which for me was the QuickBooks apps market or the Xero apps market. But again, I think the number one thing that I would do in the future if I had to start over is I would say, okay, first of all, pick a niche essentially and find other people who already know that niche, and then figure out how to help those people, right? And it could be a variety of ways. You could just cut them a check. It could be you give away something to them for free. There's lots of ways to do it, but find people who already know your customer base and drive through those people, and try to skip around any of the official channels, right? Don't go to the American Dental Association if you want to reach dentists. Go find a dental influencer who has 20,000 dentists in their Facebook group. That's a way better way to get access to those dentists. And they tend to like the influencer way better than they like the ADA or whatever it might be, because it tends to be those people are dentists themselves, and there's a lot more sort of crossover and all that. Anyways, I would sort of take a channel sales approach, but more of a sort of guerrilla channel sales approach.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you have this drive to keep creating companies and keep creating products, and you've been at it for quite some time. So what is the why behind what you do?
I really, it's the same why I've always had. I really enjoy helping small businesses. And I loved the answering service business so much, just because to see how many businesses would, just overnight start getting more customers, because fundamentally they solved the problem. Some of them I would say almost all of it didn't realize, even if they knew they had a problem, they didn't know how big it was, right? So they thought, I missed a call here or there, I need to get an answering service. But they would bring it on and boom, they get 10 calls, they get 20 calls, they get 100 calls. And all those calls are not like, hey, I want to chat, I want to talk about the weather. It's, hey, I want to buy your service, or I want you to come out and help me. And so just watching that impact was massive. And I've always loved that idea. And so as a software guy, a software engineer, I love the idea that I can take my skill and I can put it to use for people that I think matter, and try to help them grow. And so I just really am enthused about that idea, and that's kind of my whole mission. And now understanding agencies are such a critical component to that whole life cycle, and seeing them as these really wonderful folks on the ground, helping small businesses day to day, dealing with all of the technical issues, but also all of the practical issues, just knowing that we can help enable them to be successful, just super amazing for me.
Yeah, and what you mentioned about culture, small businesses and their missed calls, we actually track the inbound calls for clients, and then we're able to see how poorly they answer phone calls, and they don't even ask for their phone number or email address, and usually just ask the client to send them an email. So, I mean, small business is notorious for not really knowing how to really manage their inbound calls, for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So obviously, you have to be investing in yourself, right? As an entrepreneur, as a founder, you got to be constantly learning. You started as a developer, now you founded multiple companies. What are some of the things you're doing to personally build your skills and kind of build yourself?
Yeah, I get to talk to some really smart people every day. And so I try to learn from the people that I run into. And the fun part about me is I have the ability to connect with people that don't have my skill set, but have many skill sets that I don't have. And so what I try to do is, I might get on the phone to help them with something that's technical, but while I'm there, I'm asking them like, well, how does your business work, and where do you get customers, and what do you do for them, and how's that valuable, and where have you come from? And it's amazing the sort of stories that you hear. And I get to talk to some very high level people, and so in different organizations. And as a result, I tend to find that I get some really good lessons from the top. And so I just sort of try to ask good questions and keep my ears open and learn from, when somebody says, hey, my email doesn't work or I can't log in, I try to say, hey, wait a sec, let me fix that problem. And now that I got you, I want you to teach me something.
Yeah, and I think what you do is also kind of the selfish reason behind why I do this show myself. I get to talk to a lot of great founders who've built much bigger companies and able to hear from their experience and kind of apply some of that knowledge to kind of speed up my progress as well. So it's always great to talk to other entrepreneurs. So obviously, we as entrepreneurs, we kind of struggle between this leader versus manager role. I mean, do you kind of find yourself in one or the other camp, or how do you kind of?
Yeah, I'm a terrible manager, that's for sure. I find that I really enjoy talking to customers, and I think that's a good and a bad thing some days, because sometimes that's phenomenal, but sometimes I want to help somebody, and I'm too engrossed in what is something probably I have like a 35-person support team who really they should be talking to. But I would say that I'm more on the leadership side, but I also just find that I just am really always thrilled at getting all the way out to the customer and seeing what they're seeing, helping them work through problems, and just helping them solve things, because I feel like it really informs my ability to figure out where the product needs to go. I really enjoy the product. I'm a super fan of that. I still love coding and I still love all of that. I don't get to do it anymore, sadly, but it is still a lot of fun. And I love living vicariously through the engineering team and hearing about their escapades and adventures in new code and new technology. So I still really enjoy that too.
So I know you, especially being the developer, sometimes you get tempted to go into the weeds, right? So how do you, because I know we often hear this concept work on the business, not in the business. So what are some of the practical ways that you avoid getting caught in the middle of actually doing the most urgent stuff, not the important?
I'm a terrible person to ask that question. I don't do a good job. I mean, I'm horrible at it. I'm able to avoid the day-to-day engineering because so I would say in the places I don't get caught, it's because I have a great co-founder or manager or somebody who's just way better than me. And I've always done a good job at not I don't have an ego about it. And I love working with people who are smarter and better than me at what they do, because then I can trust them, right? So on the dev side, my CTO and co-founder Varun is the absolute best engineer I've ever met in my entire life anywhere. And so I have a lot of respect for that. So I just let him do what he does. But it's fun because I enjoy the product side. So I get to be like, hey, let's add this and let's add this, let's add this. And then I'm like, all right, well, good luck with the hard work. I'll see you later. And then I get, he has to do all of that. So, so in that sense, I get to do the thing I love, but I try to not avoid that. But I would say there's also places where I'm pretty terrible at it with, getting on the phone with, my email doesn't work or I can't log in. So, I do some things well and some things not. So That's
Yeah,
just
and I was told you talked about co-founder. I think just a recent interview that I had with another CEO that he mentioned most businesses are about 3 critical hires away from the breakthrough. So one is on the acquisition side, one is on the fulfillment side, one is on the operation side. If you have like 3, top players, like A+ players, that company can go places that they couldn't have without those 3 key players.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. Yeah, I mean, we have 3 co-founders here, and I wouldn't be here without my other 2 co-founders. I mean, they're phenomenal people and have done amazing things, and I trust them implicitly. So, and it's just awesome to have people have your back. But I can also see as we grow, we have some phenomenal team members who are in all kinds of other places in the organization, and I can definitely see the difference between you put an A player in the right seat on the bus, and the amount of stuff that they can do and multiply from is phenomenal. And so I agree with that. It's just about trying to figure out, who to hire next and make sure you get the right person, because we've certainly made some bad hires too. And, it takes a lot longer to get somebody off the bus than you would hope. And so I would say hiring is, I don't know, it sounds weird because I've heard people say in the past hiring's so important, but like, come on, like, what are you talking about? And when you're small, I think it's like, well, we don't have time to worry about that. But as you scale, it's so true. I mean, finding those right people changes the world.
Most certainly. You've kind of talked about the right people in the right seat. Do you actually follow Traction internally as a leadership team? Do you use Traction or anything?
Oh, I think I probably read that book a long time ago, which is probably where I got that idea. But no, we don't really follow anything internally. We don't. Yeah. I mean, like, that's one thing I'm not. I'm not a big OKR, agile waterfall kind of guy. I don't drink the Kool-Aid on any of that stuff. It's not that I'm certain that we borrow many of those ideas, and I think one should, but we try not to be too strict either, because I think it's about realizing that it's kind of an organic process that you learn from day in and day out. Although, we do get more structured as we go along, and I would say that's also a nice thing, because when you're small, you got to fly by the seat of your pants and just shoot from the hip. But as you get bigger and you're trying to scale an organization, you really should have a lot more structure, because back to those A players, what you really want from an A player is for them to not think about anything other than what they're focused on in a day. And if you don't have that structure, then a lot of those things are unknown, and it causes a lot of distraction that you otherwise wouldn't need. So I do see the benefits of both.
Yeah, I've heard give them structure, but then give them autonomy, right? So within that structure, they have the full freedom to take decisions. I think it's Ritz-Carlton. I think they have, like, if you're a manager at the hotel, they have like a permission to give away like $1,500 worth of stuff to the guest. Right. No need to ask why they decide to do it to please the customer, right? So they have the structure, but then they also have the freedom to be able to make that decision. Obviously, you alluded earlier about raising capital, and obviously you've mentioned services companies have a tough time raising money. But how exactly were you able to grow fast? Were you raising capital, or you kind of self-funded all of it?
100% self-funded. So, I mean, we had a small amount of capital from my prior exit, but a very small amount. It was mostly just trying to making sure we had a good product. There's a lot of luck to it, by the way, for the record. I mean, I think that very few people like to talk about luck because it just doesn't sound cool and exciting and replicable. But I also think it is very much, I think when you stare hard at anyone's success, I think you should really try never to discount luck either way. I mean, many people fail because of poor timing or poor luck, and many people succeed for the same reason. So, I think for us, we came in at the right time in the right place, and we had the right product for the right person. But I don't think that any of that could have been foretold. I think most of that was just something that fell into our lap.
Yeah, especially in the technology world, I've seen a lot of technology was kind of too early or too, early for the timing.
Yeah, there's many companies today that are worth billions of dollars that somebody else tried to start and not just tried to start, but drove to a certain point back in the past. And I think if you look at both people, or people who started at the same time, and one of them is now a publicly traded company, and the other is long since gone in the dustbin of history. And if you take a hard look at both of them, what's the difference? There really isn't a difference, right? So I think that that's the one thing as entrepreneurs. I think we celebrate success, but I think we should also be cautious not to put down failure, because I think a lot of people don't fail because they didn't work hard or didn't have a great idea. It just didn't happen, and sometimes it's how it goes.
Most certainly. I think I would think of Friendster and Friendster and MySpace kind of came too early, and then I guess Facebook when it came. Yeah.
Like
people had mobile phones.
Facebook, right? Or MySpace was massive in its time, and And then it gave way to Facebook. And why one and not the other? And it's very hard to know.
Most certainly. Well, I know we touched on some of these things before, but I'm just curious to learn, do you have any productivity hack? Because I know as entrepreneurs, one thing we don't have enough of is time. So are there things that you do as far as a way of making sure that you get your stuff done and that you are extremely productive with your time?
I do not. I'm terribly unproductive, no doubt. I go from thing to thing to thing as fast as I can. I go from fire to fire every single day. I am the last person to ask about organization. I'm terrible at it, but I'm okay with that, because I guess the hack would be have other people in your life who are phenomenal at it so that they can help you offset what your weaknesses are. And that for me is a big weakness.
Yeah, I have a similar challenge as well, because the shiny object syndrome, right? You had this one project you're working on, you got bored with it, and now you jumped on to doing something else. You never finish any one thing. So you need people. I think my brother also tells me all the time, like, you're an idea guy, but execution is so poor. He said, get one thing done before you start the next idea. So that's definitely my struggle. So one last question: knowing what you know today, what advice would you give your younger self?
Just get started earlier. I mean, when I was young, I was, I probably like I am now. I mean, you always have concerns about all of that, but standing where I stand today, I can see that I have a lot more to lose at 40 than I had at 22. And so, if you're 22, go for broke and don't look back and don't give a darn about win or lose, because at that age, the ability to restart and regrow and do it over again. I mean, you could do it 5 times, 10 times over and not miss out fundamentally on your outcomes in life. And so I think the risk there is way lower than I ever anticipated it to be. So yeah, I would just say, get started as early as possible.
Yeah, that seems to be the common theme I'm hearing from many of my guests that actually been on my show. And I think some even mentioned that start when you're in high school days, because you're under your parents' roof. You have nothing to lose.
Totally.
And everything to gain.
Absolutely.
So
I
what a
agree.
great advice. Well, Shaun, I certainly enjoyed our conversation together. Thank you so much, and wish you all the best with Go HighLevel, and hope to stay in touch.
Hey, thanks. Bye for now.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by One IMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.